Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's meeting of the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council, NYMTC. I'm Lynn Weiskopf. I'm Director of the Office of Policy, Planning, and Performance at the New York State Department of Transportation, and I'm also the Secretary of the New York State Metropolitan Transportation Council, Secretary of NYMTC. Today's council meeting is available virtually via webinar as well as in person at the NYMTC offices at 25 Beaver Street in Lower Manhattan. Council members are participating today virtually. For those of you who are on the webinar, your lines will remain muted throughout the meeting. The chat pod is available for your use and is being monitored by NYMTC staff. Any comments that are entered into the chat pod that are related to transportation planning or policy will be reviewed and included in the meeting synopsis. During the public participation section of the agenda, registered recipients will be called upon in the order of their registration. Registered speakers who are participating via webinar will be announced and their lines will be unmuted for their statements at that time. This hybrid meeting is being recorded and a link to the recording will be posted on the NYMTC website within 2 weeks of the meeting. And at this time, I will begin the roll call. When I announce your agency, I request that each principal or representative state your name and agency, and if applicable, which principal you're representing. So I'll begin with the voting members of the council. New York State Department of Transportation.
Good morning.
New York City Department of Transportation.
Good morning. This is Yogesh Sangvi, representing Commissioner Idanis Rodriguez of New York City DOT.
Thank you. New York City Department of City Planning.
This is the technologically challenged Dan Garodnick, representing the New York City Department of City Planning. Thank you.
Thank you. Nassau County.
Good morning. This is Joe Cuomo, representing Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman.
Suffolk County.
This is Darnell Tyson from Suffolk County DPW, representing County Executive Steve Ballone.
Thank you. Rockland County.
Stephen John Powell is representing Rockland County Executive Edwin J. Day.
Putnam County.
Good morning. This is John Tully representing Putnam County Executive Mary Ellen Odell.
Westchester County.
Hi, good morning. This is Blanca Lopez representing County Executive George Latimer.
Thank you. And the Metropolitan Transportation Authority.
Good morning. This is Catherine Corliss representing Jano Lieber, Chairman of the MTA.
Thank you. And now the advisory members of the council. Port Authority of New York and New Jersey.
Good morning. This is Mary Kay Murphy representing the Executive Director, Rick Cotton.
Jersey Transit.
Good morning. This is Jeremy Colangelo O'Brien representing President and CEO Kevin Corbett.
Thank you. North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority.
Good morning, David Barron and JTPA.
Thank you. Federal Transit Administration.
Good morning. I'm Steve Goodman, the Regional Administrator for the FTA.
Thank you. Federal Highway Administration.
Hi, good morning. This is Rick Marquis, the New York Division Administrator of Federal Highway.
Thank you. U.S. Environmental Protection Agency.
Good morning, Matt Larita representing EPA Regional Administrator Lisa Garcia.
Thank you. And the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation.
Good morning. This is Ona Papagiorgio representing Commissioner Sayos.
Very much. By my count and under our operating procedures, we do have a quorum for today's meeting. And I would now like to turn the meeting over to the NYMTC co-chairs, New York State Department of Transportation Commissioner Marie-Therese Dominguez, and the Director of the New York City Department of Planning, Dan Garodnick. Commissioner.
Good morning. This is Marie-Therese Dominguez from New York State Department of Transportation. It's good to have you all convene this morning.
Today's actions that we'll be taking at the NYMTC meeting is significant indeed. And in that we will be adopting the $37 billion transportation improvement program, otherwise known as the TIP, for federal fiscal years 2023 through 2027. This is not only, you know, with an opportunity like what we've been presented with over the course of the last year in terms of federal investment in infrastructure across the nation with the IIJA, as well as significant state investment in our transportation infrastructure. It's really good that the actions that we're undertaking today as part of the larger planning process can be executed. So it's good action on behalf of NYMTC, but you know, as we move forward, we also need to acknowledge that we have challenges along the way. So some of those challenges come in the sense that we've got folks that have been working at this long and hard, and we're very grateful for their services. But two, we also recognize that our economic climate is such that we want to make sure that we're maximizing our dollars and planning forward as much as we possibly can to make sure that we leverage all the benefits that can be reaped from this level of transportation investment. So as we look at this, we indeed have good opportunity today. We're going to be looking at programming the majority of the federal funding authorized under the IIJA, which, as I mentioned before, was signed into law at the end of last year. We're also going to be adopting the transportation conformity determination that's required as part of EPA's Clean Air Act amendments from 1990. The conformity determination qualitatively demonstrates that our new TIP and the current NYMTC regional transportation plan conform to the mobile resource emissions milestones set forth in New York's implementation plan for air quality. And as we're shortly going to hear, these actions will enable the use of $15 billion in federal transportation fund for our region's transit vehicles, transit facilities, roads, bridges, bikeways, walking paths, all manners of transportation, and providing additional accessibility across our great state. The federal funding will leverage $22 billion in state and local funding in the TIP, which signals the commitment of our state, New York State, and the region to the maintenance and enhancement of our transportation infrastructure and our services. And everyone is engaged in all of this, and it's actually really exciting. It's a very exciting time in transportation. For those of us that are on the transportation geek side, it's a good place to be. At this point in time, I want to turn it over. We've got additional opportunities, not just on the formula fundings that we get from the IIJA to the state that comes directly, but we also have a number of opportunities in terms of some of the discretionary opportunities that the state can take advantage of at every level. And so I know Dan, my co-chair, is going to go through a little bit of that. So I'll turn it over to Dan.
Will do. Thank you very much. And celebrating on behalf of transportation geeks everywhere, I want to just tell you I appreciate your comments, and I want to add my welcome to council members in our audience to today's meeting. And as you just noted, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act isn't just about increased funding. There are a variety of programs like the Carbon Reduction Program, the National Electric Vehicle Initiative, the Protect Program, Reconnecting Communities. Through those various programs, the IIJA can help us take significant steps to address climate change, system resiliency, and transportation equity. The new programs have yet to be completely rolled out, so there will be additional funds added to this TIP through formula funding programs over the next several years. Additionally, we are all aggressively pursuing nationally competitive funding programs such as Reconnecting Communities to bring additional specialized funds into the region. And that effort has borne fruit so far, as NYMTC members have been awarded $277 million over 7 programs whose grant awards have been announced to date. And I will note, my own agency, the New York City Department of City Planning, and in partnership with our city and state colleagues, we've been able to advance forward-thinking transportation and housing initiatives, including things like adding transit service and density around 4 planned Bronx Metro North stations as part of the suite of the mayor's ambitious City of Yes efforts to ensure that New York City has housing to accommodate our growing population, as well as safe, efficient, and green transportation to move our own residents and also the residents of the region. We're eager to support our colleagues beyond the city's borders in growing their own housing supply, particularly around transit, so that we as a region may recover and grow stronger together. So this tip represents a funding program as well as a policy document and a guide during this transitional moment. So really happy to be here with you. Thanks to everybody for your participation. I'm going to turn the meeting back to Commissioner Dominguez.
Thanks very much. All right, so next on our agenda, we want to hear directly from some more of the details of the actual Transportation Improvement Program. And for that, I'm going to introduce NYMTC's Assistant Director, both Assistant Directors, Jerry Bogaz and Deborah Nelson, who are going to provide an overview of the NYMTC 2023-2027 Transportation Improvement Plan, and also talk about the conformity determination. So with that, I'll turn it over to Gary first.
I'm muted. Okay, now I'm good?
Excuse me, Jerry. I can't believe I just said Gary. Jerry.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner, and thank you to the co-chairs. Deb and I are going to try to summarize the very significant actions you're about to take and some of the impacts it'll have on our region. So if we can go to the next slide, I will quickly go through the Transportation Improvement Program. So first of all, Congress funds transportation through authorization acts, which usually are 5 years in duration, and annual appropriations acts. And the current multi-year authorization act is, as we've heard, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, or IIJA. And that was signed into law in November of 2021. It reauthorizes surface transportation program funding, and it also not only maintains current funding programs, but it adds new ones and increases funding. Next slide, please. So without going into excruciating detail, Congress appropriates, the US DOT apportions funding, NYSDOT, the New York State DOT suballocates that funding within New York State, gets down to metropolitan regions like this one, where metropolitan planning organizations like NYMTC program tips, and eventually gets to project and grant reimbursements for individual projects. And of course, there is a kind of a sidestep there in that US DOT has significant discretionary awards, which we'll talk about in a second. But that is roughly the process by which federal dollars flow into our region. Next slide, please. The funding under IIJA is very different. As you can see on the left here, the FAST Act was the predecessor act. That programmed about made available or authorized about $293 billion nationally. The IIJA took that as a base case and added on top of it, almost doubling it. And that is what we're seeing in our program, is the start of that infrastructure money coming into our region, and hopefully our positive use of it. Next slide, please. So without going into details here, these are the Title 23 formula funding programs administered by the Federal Highway Administration. What's notable on this slide are the 3 at the bottom, which are new to the IIJA, and Director Garodnick mentioned these: the Carbon Reduction Program, the Protect Program, and the National EV Infrastructure Program. Those are being rolled out as we speak, and we're just beginning to program funding for those programs, and those program funds will be amended into the TIP as we do so. Next slide. Title 49 funding is administered by the Federal Transit Administration. This has also been increased, although there is no new funding program identified, and it covers a gamut of funding needs and resource needs for transportation, public transportation and public transit, as well as human services transportation. Next slide. And this is what's really unique about the IIJA, in that previous funding acts had in fact identified discretionary or competitive programs that were national in scope and were decided at the discretion of the Secretary of Transportation. The IIJA has taken that broadly and has increased funding for that to over $100 billion with a B. And as you can see by this org chart, has identified over a dozen new competitive discretionary programs that are grouped in this chart under different topics. So this is a wide gamut of funding, and as Director Garodnick pointed out, NYMTC's members and staff have been working hard to put together applications for the programs that have been rolled out so far. And to some impact, again, $277 million over 7 programs have been awarded. But that's only part of 1 year, and there will be notices of funding opportunity for these programs in each of the next 4 years through fiscal 26. So the opportunities are out there. We're going to be working hard to get as much of this funding into our region as possible. Next slide, please. Now, we have to follow a planning process, and part of that, the circled item, is the Transportation Improvement Program, which actually crystallizes what the projects are, what the funding is, what the scheduling will be, and so forth. And that's really what you're going to be adopting today. Next slide. The role of the TIP is as a funding program that enables federal dollars. So as metropolitan regions, through their MPOs, adopt TIPs, they're basically making a commitment to the projects that are in this program. And as you see, that's a large number of projects in our region. This current TIP, the TIP we're acting on, is a 5-year program organized by federal fiscal year, and it enables the obligation of federal money for the projects that are listed inside. And it includes, as you can see on the right-hand side, a whole gamut of different projects. So it is a broad-ranging program of projects. Next slide. TIP is usually developed every 2 to 3 years. We've recently been doing every 3 years, and that's coordinated with the development process for the statewide Transportation Improvement Program, which basically pulls together all the MPO TIPs in New York State, as well as TIPs for rural counties. And that is the official document that the federal government recognizes. So during each of these cycles, existing projects are updated, new projects are programmed, and new fiscal years are added. And mobile source emissions are then analyzed for transportation conformity. Next slide. We do have to follow a strict test of fiscal constraint, which basically means we have to identify the funding that's likely to be available during the period of TIP and only program projects up to that funding. This TIP is fiscally constrained. It makes use of the dollars we anticipate will be available over the period of the TIP, fiscal 23 through 27. Next slide. The proposed funding in the TIP is significant, obviously, $36.9 billion. As you can see, 40% of that, or just over $14.5 billion, is federal, and 22.3 of that, 60%, is state and local, so it is a highly leveraged program. But that federal portion is hopefully going to increase as we program these new formula funds into it, and also as we reach out and compete for the nationally available funding. Next slide, please. It's a large program. As you can see here, over 1,000 projects are in this program. It's probably the second largest in the country behind Southern California. And the number of projects doesn't equate to the amount of funding because they're different sizes. But you can see in our 3 sub-areas, there's about 300 or more projects in each of the sub-areas. Next slide, please. And this is very significant when you look at the funding that's in the TIP and you compare it to previous TIPs. You can see that the increases coming through the IIJA are being reflected, beginning to be reflected. 26% increase in program federal funds over the last TIP, which was fiscal 20 through 24. But keep in mind, the 3 new formula programs have not yet been programmed. They will be going forward. And the majority of the awarded discretionary funding has yet to be programmed because those awards were made very recently. Those will be programmed by amendment also. And there'll be other discretionary awards for each of the fiscal years beyond fiscal 23 in the dozen or so programs. So this increase in federal funding will hopefully get bigger, and we'll see something more in the range of 30 to 35% over the previous funding levels. And the next slide, I want to point out that an important part of this is to demonstrate transportation conformity through a regional emissions analysis. And my colleague, Deb Nelson, will talk a bit about that, and then we'll move back into the action items. Thank you all.
Great, thank you, Jerry. You know, as Jerry mentioned, the TIP enables the federal funding. If you could go to the next slide, please. But transportation conformity needs to be determined to ensure that the federal funding and the approvals that we give to highway and transit activities are consistent with air quality goals. We don't want to be exacerbating any air quality violations or negative impacts. So the way we do this is we forecast our mobile source emissions. Those are emissions that come from buses, cars, transit, trucks, and we look at those projects that within the regional transportation plan and the transportation improvement program. So we forecast those regional emissions and we compare those emissions to the budgets that are established in the state implementation plan for air quality. That's called the SIP. And then we look and say, establish that we have not exceeded those emission budgets. So if you could go to the next slide, please. So we do a regional emissions analysis for areas that we are in non-attainment. So we're actually currently in non-attainment in the New York metropolitan area, except for Putnam County, for ozone level, ground level ozone, which is the volatile organic compounds and the nitrous oxides. And then we also are for the fine particulate matter, PM 2.5, in all of the counties that in NYMTC area except for Putnam, plus Orange County. So we coordinate with the Orange County Transportation Council. Next slide, please. So the results from the regional emissions analysis will be presented. Go ahead, next slide. So in the 9-county area within the NYMTC area, as I mentioned, not Putnam County, we have passed the budget for both the nitrous oxides, NOx, and the volatile organic compounds, VOX. And we look at those in tons per day. So as you can see, we're well below the budget, and we have passed for both of those. If you could go to the next slide, please. And then for the 9-county area plus Orange County, we look at the combined annual mobile source emissions in tons per year. And as you can see, for both NOx and fine particulate matter, we're well below the budget. So we have passed for both of those analyses. Next slide, please. So so as you can see, we have forwarded our projects for the TIP and the regional plan as amended, and we are within our emission budgets, and so we have passed transportation conformity determination. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jerry, Deborah. Greatly appreciate your presentations, and I'm glad to hear that we're in conformity. All right, let me open it up for questions. Do any of the members have questions based on the materials that have been presented? Okay, hearing no questions, thank you again for the presentation. We're going to move on to our next agenda item, and I will turn that over to Dan to talk about public participation.
You got it. So public participation portion of our agenda, we're going to hear from participants in the order that they have registered to speak. Each speaker is going to be given up to 3 minutes to offer their statement. We ask each registered speaker to limit their comments to relevant transportation and planning related items. Our first registered speaker is Murray Bowden, who will provide his remarks from the meeting location. So whenever you are settled and ready, we're here to listen.
Yeah, I'm here. Good morning. Be nice if I could see my picture. Thank you. I was in this room about a month ago with a guy named Ian Francis, who was representing New York State DOT. He was sitting right over there. I pointed out that DOT breaks the law in a number of places on road markings. I asked that 2 pictures be put up on a screen so I could describe it better, but you can't do that. Yeah, Jerry just had a PowerPoint presentation. Why can't I have the 2 pictures up there? The other thing is that when I'm in here and you're out there, I have no idea if you're paying attention or doing your email. So here goes. Ian Francis said he would look into the incorrect road lines. Completely illegal. Nothing happened. He didn't tell me. They didn't correct the road lines. One was under the George Washington Bridge, where there's a guardrail and a white line next to the guardrail, and the other's up in Pittsfield. Now, if he can't get that fixed, which is a safety hazard and an illegal line, Commissioner, fire him. No, just don't move him somewhere, get rid of him, because in interest of safety, he's a danger to the public health. And if you can't fire him, Commissioner, maybe we need a new commissioner. This is about safety. New York City is trying desperately to speed their buses up. If DOT uses illegal lines and nobody can fix it, then fire them. Which also means DOT has no credibility, and any recommendations they made to the tip are useless and meaningless. I just picked 2 because that was the easiest to document. DOT, New York State DOT, has no idea what uniform in the manual means. There's no uniformity. Therefore, you cannot vote on anything, for the record, that's recommended by New York State DOT. Fire Ian Francis as being incompetent and a danger to the public health. And Commissioner, if you can't fire him, we need a new commissioner. That's pretty clear. This is an era of global warming. We want the buses to go faster. You need to tell people the truth. I passed somebody this morning, the light was red and could see through the door. He was doing his text. The light turned green, he was still doing his text. When he looks up, that driver needs to see a yellow line on the left and a white line on the right. You haven't been able to do that. Department of Transportation of the state of New York does not understand that. You either fire Ian Francis immediately and put somebody in there who can obey the law, or we need a new commissioner. I was wondering whether or not I could have the guts to say this morning. I'm 89 years old. Global warming is the major issue of today. You cannot build bridges the way they did in Hastings over the Silma River Parkway. It was a waste of resources. Long Island Railroad replaced bridges. Jano had them build them on the ground and put them in with the cranes. Why can't that be done all over? Reduces the consumption of steel and concrete. You're putting sidewalks in there where sidewalks shouldn't be. You should have a shared walkway, the same as the county trailways and the state trailways. I'm 89, I'll be dead soon. I know it. I'm failing. Dementia's here, I got it. I have to read lips to understand what you're saying. So do a lot of other people, and yet you go on without fixing it. Well, I can't fix it, but it's in the record. There's a tape of this. If you don't fix it, Commissioner, we need a new commissioner.
We do not have any other registered speakers today for this meeting.
There are no comments in the chat as of yet.
So no additional speakers, no additional comments?
Correct.
Okay. All right, I'm going to stay with Dan for our next agenda item. I want to thank Mr. Rudin for his remarks, first of all. And then let's go to our next agenda item. Director Garodnick, if you want to introduce our first action.
Director Garodnick is switching from his phone to his office PC and is not quite available at the moment. So would you please take that, Commissioner?
Sure. All right. So we're going to begin with the action items on the agenda. All the material that is related to the action items have been posted on the NYMTC website, which is www.nymtic.org, and are available if you're there in person at the meeting location. The first action is to accept the synopsis of the February 24th, 2022 council meeting. And as we move through the action items, I'm going to request that all the voting members announce your name, the agency that you represent, when you make a motion, or if you second a motion, so that we make sure that our secretary can record everything appropriately. So let me begin by, do I have a motion to accept the February 24th, 2022 meeting synopsis?
Putnam County would make a motion.
Putnam County?
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Joe Cuomo from Nassau County will second the motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All right. Does anyone object to the motion of approving the minutes from the last meeting of February 24th? All right. Hearing no objections.
Okay, thank you very much. Just confirming that there are no other registered speakers. Is that correct?
Is this Dan? We're moving on to the first. I've moved on. We're in the middle of taking a vote on the first the meeting synopsis, and then I'll turn it over.
Right.
Okay. So hearing no objections to the motion, the meeting synopsis is accepted. Thank you very much. And let me go to the next action item here, which is the adoption of the resolution of the resolution number 2022-4, which is the adoption of the federal fiscal year 2023 through 2027 Transportation Improvement Program.
Stephen Powell, Rockland County moves it.
Catherine Corliss, MTA, seconds.
Excellent. Mary Byrne, is there anything you want to introduce in terms of the resolution itself so that we can discuss it?
Yes, sure. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm here today to introduce resolution number 2022-4 to the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council. The purpose of this resolution is to formally adopt the federal fiscal years 2023 to 2027 Transportation Improvement Program. The project listings which compose the TIP have been developed in accordance with federal planning regulations with the cooperation of the state, regional, and local officials, as well as public transit operators, and with the active participation of the general public. The project listings have been publicly reviewed through a 30-day comment period for the proposed federal fiscal years 2023 to 2027 TIP, and related public review meetings held virtually on August 9th of 2022. The project listings for the Lower Hudson Valley, New York City, and the Long Island subregions have been recommended for inclusion in the TIP at their respective executive meetings held the week of September 5th of 2022. The federal fiscal years 2023 to 2027 Transportation Improvement Program has been recommended by the Program Finance and Administration Committee on September 22nd, 2022. The Program Finance and Administration Committee further recommends that if all projects in the federal fiscal 2022 element of the current federal fiscal 2020 to 2024 TIP were not obligated by September 30th of 2022, they may be included in the federal fiscal 2023 to 2027 TIP once adopted without further NYMTC action, provided transportation conformity and fiscal constraint can be maintained. Therefore, in accordance with NYMTC's operating procedures, we request that you adopt the federal fiscal years 2023 to 2027 Transportation Improvement Program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. All right, any questions on anything that Mary has provided or the resolution itself? Any discussion? All right, I did hear a motion rather to act on this resolution, so I apologize. If you could restate your motion.
Yeah, sure. Stephen Powers from Rockland County moves this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. And I heard a second as well.
Yes, this is Catherine Corliss from the MTA. Second.
Thank you, Catherine. All right, we have a motion. It's been seconded for adoption of the TIP for fiscal years 23 through 27. Let's go to a vote. We'll have to do it by roll call. So I'm going to start with the Lower Hudson Valley. Putnam County.
Aye.
Rockland County.
Aye.
Westchester County.
Aye.
Moving to Long Island, Nassau County.
Aye.
Suffolk County.
Aye.
New York City Department of Transportation.
Aye.
New York City City Planning.
Aye.
MTA.
Aye.
And NYSDOT votes aye. Thank you all very much. The motion passes. So I'll turn it over to Director Garodnick for our next item.
Great. So the next action item here is to adopt Resolution 2022-5, Council adoption of a transportation conformity determination for federal fiscal years 2023 to 2027 Transportation Improvement Program and federal fiscal years 2022 to 2050 Regional Transportation Plan as amended. And I'm going to ask Mark Maglienti of NYMTC staff to introduce this resolution. Mark, go ahead.
Good. Okay, good morning. I'm here to introduce Resolution 2022-5 relating to the Transportation Conformity Determination, which NYMTC has completed in connection with the 2023-2027 Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP, and the 2022-2050 Regional Transportation Plan called Moving Forward as amended. This determination demonstrates that the transportation improvements identified in the TIP and the fiscally constrained element of Moving Forward as amended have met all applicable mobile source emissions tests for pollutants and analysis years as specified in the New York State Implementation Plan for Air Quality, or the SIP, and therefore conforms to the milestones set forth in the SIP. In addition, the determination demonstrates compliance with the federal air quality requirements under the Clean Air Act amendments of 1990. We ask that you please adopt this resolution. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, Mark. May I have a motion to adopt the resolution?
Joe Cuomo from Nassau County makes a motion to adopt the resolution.
County.
Thank you very much. I got Nassau's motion. Let's see if there's a second.
Suffolk County, I second it. Darnell Tyson.
Okay. Motion by Nassau, seconded by Suffolk. Lots of partnership on Long Island. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we're now going to vote by roll call, starting with the Lower Hudson Valley. Putnam County, please.
Aye.
Rockland.
Aye.
Westchester.
Aye.
Long Island, Nassau County, we know you're here.
Aye.
Suffolk,
Aye.
New York City, DOT.
Aye.
City Planning, aye. And finally, MTA.
Aye.
New York State Department of Transportation.
Aye.
Thank you all. The motion passes. Commissioner Dominguez, we'll go back to you.
All right. So the next action item that we have is in the form of recognition of service. We have some members of the team here that have participated in NYMTC for quite some time, and we want to acknowledge their service. And I'm going to start with the recognition for our former NYSDOT Executive Deputy Commissioner Ron Epstein. We've got a resolution at hand here, but let me say a few words. What the resolution actually talks about in a little bit more detail is really articulating NYMTC's appreciation to Ron, not just for his service, but for his guidance, his leadership as a secretary to the council and chair to PFAC. Ron, during his service, not only exercised really great professional leadership for NYSDOT, but he also did an enormous amount of work on behalf of NYMTC, facilitating discussions across the board, across the state, at all levels of government, certainly amongst the council's principals, but really helping move the larger regional agenda in our planning process forward. He is indeed, when we talk about public service, Ron's 30+ years of service to New York State are emblematic of that level of professional dedication, professional approach, and certainly his passion for creating not only just good planning mechanisms, but executing on accessibility and mobility and equity, I think, across the board. So on behalf of the council and PFAC, I want to say thank you and to Ron for his service to the state and certainly to NYMTC across the board and to the state. So can I have a motion, please, to advance this resolution in service to and recognizing the service of Ron Epstein?
Blanca Lopez for Westchester County motions this resolution.
Thank you, Blanca. Do I have a second?
Sure. Dan Garodnick, New York City Planning.
Thank you, Dan. All right. Any objections to this action? Hearing none, the motion passes. I don't know if Ron is with us this morning, but Ron, if you are, happy to give you a few minutes to say a few words.
Ron had a conflict, so he is not in this meeting today.
Okay. All right. Well, we've got one other member, principal member of NYMTC that we would also like to acknowledge, and that is former New Jersey Transit Executive Director Mary Amin. And Mary served as part of the planning authority function for New Jersey Transit. Mary, I think I saw you on the line here, so I'm glad you could join us this morning. I don't know if you were able to stay, but this resolution again articulates NYMTC's appreciation to you for your outstanding service as an advisory member. You've provided great guidance and valuable support to the council. Your active leadership is very, very much appreciated, and you really have contributed in such a meaningful way to the shared vision of NYMTC and to the entire region. So I want to first of all thank you for your dedicated service. Again, public service is a true calling. So thank you for your dedicated service and the support. Certainly wish you well in all of your future endeavors, but again, want to acknowledge the great work that you've done on behalf of the entire region. So do I have a motion to adopt the resolution honoring Mary and her service?
Stephen Powers, Rockland County moves it.
Thank you, Stephen. Do I have a second?
Dan Garodnick, New York.
Thank you, Dan. All right, any discussion? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you, Mary, very, very much. I'll turn it over quickly. If you have any words to share, we'd love to hear from you.
Well, thank you very much. I hope everyone can hear me. This was quite an unexpected but very much appreciated recognition. I thank you for the kind words. It has always been since I joined the NJTPA back in 2006. It's always been my privilege to work with Jerry and the rest of the staff, and becoming executive director, and serving as an advisory member of the NYMTC board has really helped me understand how important it is for MPOs to address problems and opportunities on a regional and a multi-state level. The MAP Forum is well into its second decade now and has done and continues to do great work in many areas, including freight planning and sustainability, climate action, and equity. So in addition to thanking you for the recognition, I also want to thank NYMTC and everyone on the board for the friendships and the partnerships that I was able to work on during these many years that I was with NJTPA. It's a really exciting time for transportation right now, and I'm a little bit jealous, but I'm also grateful for whatever small contribution I've been able to make to get us to this point. But I know that the region and these MPOs are in very good hands, and I thank you again for the opportunity and for the recognition.
Thank you very much, Mary. It's great that you could join us. And again, thank you for your service. All right, we're nearing the end here. I want to say a quick round of thank yous, not only to all of the committee members, greatly appreciate your engagement, your service, but an acknowledgement that this is indeed what we've undertaken today, a very important step in improving the TIP. This is a great investment opportunity that we have for our region, for our state, and certainly for our local governments. And so I want to thank each of you for the continued partnership. It's indicative of the larger effort that we have, that we execute in terms of transportation and truly serving the public in everything that we do. So the next meeting of the council, and I also want to thank our federal partners who are with us. We do all of this in cooperation and collaboration and partnership with everybody. So the next meeting of the council is tentatively scheduled for February the 23rd of 2023. Easy to remember. And the details of the meeting will be made available in the next couple of weeks. I want to thank my co-chair, Dan Garodnick. Thank you very much. With that, I think that concludes today's meeting, and I'd ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Blanca Lopez, Westchester County, motions.
Okay, I heard Blanca for a motion. Do I have a second?
Nassau County seconds the motion.
All right. Any objections? All right, hearing none, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much. Please be safe and be well.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
You.